Thank you, Mohammed. That was really interesting. I have some questions for you.
Please.
You talked about the driver in your organization for introducing behavioral-based safety as you had a fatality. This often happens, that you have something really negative that drives the emphasis on safety. Could you talk about how you would persuade people, how you would have persuaded the company to go this way had you not had a fatality?
Well, if you said if they didn't have the fatality?
No. Well, hopefully we're talking to companies that haven't had a fatality here today. So if you haven't had a fatality, how would you persuade your management team to go down this direction?
So first of all, as we just discussed during the presentation, every accident I've seen in my career life, my 22 career lives, behavior is always there, is always usual. It is within the usual suspects for any accident. And this is the point where each organization look at and say, oh my God, this is something soft, something we cannot touch with our hands. And you say behavior, and I heard this one time from one of the management. Yes, you are the safety guys. You usually refer to unsafe behavior when we speak about accident. The answer was yes, because behavior is always there. So bringing back this and trying to explain to the management that having the procedures in the best shape of it, having these defenses in the workplace, it's actually what we do physically of doing this procedure, protocols, policies, whatsoever, method statement, risk assessment, all in all, it's not just enough. We need also to work on the mindset of the people who do the job. And that was the selling point for the behavior thing, because this is the only missing thing here in our, let me say, toolkit: procedures, policies, precautions at the workplace, and. But the mindset, what stays inside the minds of ourselves as an employee, this is what gets tackled from this behavior-based safety.
Okay. And the employees you had in your organization, what was their level of awareness going into this, of being able to spot an unsafe behavior, an unsafe condition?
This is a very good question, Alison, because I found out also, and I guess everyone would agree with me about this point as well. People at the workplace, they are not the same when it comes to hazard identification and risk and pointing risks. Just try to understand how big is the problem. Try with 10 employees from your organization, or whatever, it may be 5. Ask them to do a simple risk assessment to a situation, and you will be surprised when you see the result of this. But we have 2 things here. We have the risk and we have the hazard. Spotting hazard is much more easier than making a risk assessment. What I used to do as, let me say, a complementing program to this one is a hazard identification, a risk assessment training. Why we do this? We tend to do this to organizations, so we make sure that everyone plays the same tone. Everyone have the same level of understanding of hazard and risk at the workplace, because we are not the same in this. People really, there's a big difference among the organization. You would be surprised if you conduct such an easy example like this. And usually, you will be surprised more when someone reports and say, yes, this is a hazard situation, and wait for the question, why? And you see that there is really a big difference. So I always recommend conducting another module of this training, making everyone aware of the hazard identification and risk assessment at the workplace.
Okay. So if you're asking people to do make behaviors, how much training did you actually do for people on how to use this system?
Well,
I'm thinking for example, so you talked about how you ask the question, how you, when you see someone who is doing something which could be unsafe, how you go up to that person and how you discuss this in a positive way to get a positive outcome, and not that they are going to be deeply offended by what you've said. And this is perhaps you're talking about you're going to a peer, so you're not going in a position of a manager telling them what to do. How did you get that type of message across?
Okay, there are two parts here. So the first part is how I handle the situation in reality in the workplace, and how people approach each other. Part of this training, once upon a time, when we used to have a face-to-face, lots of face-to-face meetings before 2020, I used to do a part in this training that people demonstrate and make a role play on the training itself, how they would approach each other to speak about unsafe points. Because lots of people believe that whenever they know that much information, then they have the right to play the sound from above or something like this. And this is really a very, very important point, because it kills the feedback before it's even born. So how I have the right mindset that I am your colleague, I'm not your boss, I'm not your supervisor, even if I am from organizational perspective. But this is the right mindset, that we're all colleagues. We all need to have this mindset in our head before we approach someone. So that's the first point, which is having this kind of mindset. And the second one, which is I believe it's not possible, is to make a role play and show the people how really they can do it in real.
Okay. Could you give us some examples of when it worked well and when it worked badly?
So yeah, I have two clear examples where I personally was working with two different companies in two different times of my life. One company wanted to have, let me put it between brackets, the system. If you remember the Bradley curve in the beginning of this presentation, they wanted to have the system. When I say the system, I mean that they wanted to tick the box. Yes, we have a system, we have a behavior-based safety program, and another company where everyone, I mean it, everyone rode in the same direction, from the very top of the pyramid of the organization till everyone in the construction site at the farthest construction sites they have in the world. So the first one, which is the example which didn't work really well, it works, by the way, but the success rate was not really what would be expected from such program or from such initiative. Not this program which I'm doing, but the idea of having a safe behavior, mentality, and safety integrated within the culture. So the first one, they didn't work because they started the program. I can call it the killers of the behavior-based safety program. They started the program the other way around. So they asked the people first to do observation, and then the people start to come to my office and to come to everyone's office and ask, guys, why we need to do this observation? What's the message? And then another message, which was also as a feedback from the workforce, do we really need to write the names of our colleagues in these observations? Do we need to let me talk that Mr. X or Y did that and that and that? So they didn't get absolutely the right message, because if you check the hazard identification form form in the application, there is no place to write that Mohammed did that, or Alison did that, or Tom did that. No, there is no place to write the name. And that's really very focal and important point here. So back to the organization, which was not really successful. They started this program by taking bits and pieces from everything, trying to put it together to represent to the board that, yes, we have a behavior-based safety. It took a while to convince everyone, no, we need to make it the other way around. So that's a killer factor for the success of the behavior change. The other organization, they really were all in the mindset, yes, let's go in this direction. So they started to make many aspects on all levels to make sure that they fulfill the four pillars of behavior change. So for the pinpointing, they start to make an intensive training, which is in a smart way, reflecting the individual needs of every employee in the company and the kind of activities and his day-to-day places and. They started to make a gumbo walk for the top management as a requirement. And this requirement, it's getting assessed in the end of the year when they assess their performance to the top management. I'm speaking here about the board level, not the department heads even. So can you imagine that the board members and those who are reporting to the board members required to do these kind of observations when they go to the website? And it's great, because that's how change happens. It comes from the top, goes to the down, goes all the way down, then everyone feel it, everyone see it, everyone breathe it. These are the two examples which I've seen and have experience with it with this program.
Okay, it was interesting when you talked about whether feedback can be anonymous and whether, I mean, we definitely don't want a name and shame type culture. Have you seen it both ways? Have you seen it, because some companies definitely want the name of the person who's making the report on that form, and some don't. Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I guess there is a little bit of misunderstanding here. So when I said there are no names, I don't mean that the observer name is not there. The observer name, it's definitely there because it's done from your application, from yourself, okay, from a form, and you hand it over. Let's speak about the two modules, okay? Forget about proactively that we provide very smart solution for this one. Let's speak about it like in the old, in the old days. In the old days, people don't use the mobile phones to make an observation. They had just have a piece of paper and they write the observation, and these papers are having this they're copying, so there are 3 copies, and you give a copy to the supervisor, you give a copy to the safety, and you keep a copy for yourself to follow up with the action. So when I said no names, I mean that I will not write the name of the person who did the unsafe behavior, because this is the killer for the factor. Imagine yourself in the site, and you walk in there in the site, and you do something, and someone else, okay, Mohamed did this, 1, 2, 3. Then I go, I give it to his boss. That's a killer for the whole operation. That destroys the idea. Yeah. We need people, just to point the problems and to solve the problems. And meanwhile, while I'm solving the problem, I need to talk to the person who did the problem and explain for him. You shouldn't do this. You should do that the next time. And this is for your benefit, and not to make him ashamed of what he did.
Okay, but can't you imagine an example, particularly your background is construction and you have contractors working on your site. You want the contractors also to be making these observations, but a contractor reports, I don't know, 5 things. They're very good things, but the supervisor looks at that and thinks this is a troublemaker. I mean, surely there has to be, we'd love in the perfect world that everyone wanted these observations to be made, but actually if it delays your project and causes many knock-on problems, then it's easy. We still want the observations to come in, but it's definitely something that will be going through someone's mind. Do I really want to be saying that? So do you think the person giving the feedback, the person filling in the form, should also be anonymous?
Well, I've seen, I was in a situation, and that's perfectly as you just described, Alison. It's mainly contractor. They always have this kind of feeling that, oh my God, this would be something which will stubborn our performance, will make it more slow. This might be a reason for the main contractor to come back for us and make fines. Think about it. But Here is the point. The selling point here, or the secret behind this, is transparency and clarity. Hey, my dear beloved contractor, I'm kidding, of course not. Contractors, please, this process is not to point your issues. This process is for all of us to learn where we need to go, what we need to do in terms of training. This process also help us maybe update our procedures, update our work instructions. It's not to point out that contractor X or contractor Y are doing this intensively, then okay, when they come for the next invoice, I should deduct this from them or apply this kind of penalty for them. We should separate these two things together. If we make it clear and we manage to explain it clear to our contractor that this is not the purpose of the observation, the purpose of the observation is to understand, is to have a mirror which see inside ourselves, inside our minds, how we behave, how we think about it, how healthy is our safety culture. This is the purpose of it.
Okay. So observations come in two ways. You can make observations about people doing things and observations about things that you've seen. In my experience, huge percentage, the vast majority are conditions that you've seen. Would you agree with that?
I didn't get the question. Would you please repeat again?
So there are two types of hazards that you might be observing. There's unsafe acts and unsafe conditions. Between those two, which would you say was the most reported?
Conditions, of course. Human beings, they will not. They will refrain more and more from reporting specific acts. And I tell you also something here. Personally, reporting these acts is not as useful as just going directly to the person and talk with him to stop him from the act itself. And yeah, of course, we still get reports about the acts, and I encourage people to do it more and more. And every time I see a report with an act, and this report somehow people manage to write the names sometime in the free text field and so on. I encourage them to take the names off because I don't need to see the name. I need to see the act. But statistically, the unsafe situations or the unsafe conditions is more reported than the unsafe act.
Okay, can you give me an example of, you've seen someone doing an unsafe act, how you're going to go and approach them to find out, why they're doing, to sort of learn more about, rather than just that this is the headline, this is what they're doing. Surely we're interested in why, what other options there were. How do you manage to draw that out from them? Can you give me an example, please?
Well, I personally see, and that's what I've also seen from those who taught me before behavior-based safety, that having your smiley, serious, positive approach to the person and starting the conversation with him. Let's assume this situation is not a critical situation. So I'm not seeing someone stepping on the handrail on the construction site on level 9 meters, and then I go and start having a discussion about things and so on. This is another situation, but let's speak about a medium or something in the middle. So positive approach, greetings to the person. Which department you work for? I work there. Yeah, hey, listen, okay, this situation is not really correct and it could hurt you if you do this or that because you don't have the right set of precautions here in the place. Oh, by the way, do you know that they have a training for work at height? They make it tomorrow. Why not you take yourself and go? It's very useful. It gives you very good hints and it won't take a long time. Positive is the secret thing here. Staying positive, trying to show the person I'm talking with that I just care about him. I don't care about that his name. I might even not ask him about his name, but showing him that it's a purely care for my colleague, nothing more, nothing less. Care that we all go back home safe, staying positive. This is the point.
Yeah, I'm trying to get away from just giving people more training and seeing it as a fault of the person, but actually, as you've described in your presentation, generally people do something for a reason. So, for example, your guy that jumped over the handrail, what he wanted to do was get to his, I can't remember, tea break quicker.
Yeah.
So how much do you go into the why have you done this, and how could we as an organization do it better, so that, you know, given that most people are actually rational in making this decision. I mean, he knew he wanted to get to his tea break. He could see that there was a quicker way, and so he took the quicker way. What he didn't know was that the roof was fragile. But it's about really understanding how you could make the rational decision be the right one. How do you, for example, investigate? I guess it's like investigating the root cause of what happened and how it can be prevented.
Investigating the root cause and is also a key element here. And you said, okay, in the beginning of your question that you want to go away from more training. I would a little bit disagree with you, because training is what make us understand things on its real thing, make us understand things correctly, make us see the severity of doing an act in a specific way. And I don't mean training that we take people all the day, put them in a room and keep stuffing their heads with lots of information. That's definitely not what I mean. I mean, as much as needed, as much as the job site need to have, because we don't have the same risks at the workplace. We don't have the same exposure, but the more clearing, the more awareness you bring to the work location for everyone, it will help them identify more risk, and it will help them understand that, yeah, if I do this, then I get an accident. But this is a long-term plan. It won't change from 30 minutes induction training in the beginning of the construction site, and then a toolbox with 10 minutes every week. It's more complicated process, and it's more complicated not for the workforce where they need to attend these training sessions. It's more complicated for the organization where the organization need to tailor these, let's call it awareness, all right? To form this awareness and to make it more vivid and more actual. This is an ongoing, long process. And it's not only by training, it's induction, it's lead by example, it's posters, which I see at the workplace, might be videos, which I play it sometime during lunch. Maybe that would grab someone. It's simply like a symphony, and everyone in the organization is having a role in this. We play it all together, then we bring out a very nice music, which everyone can hear, and then would reflect on our actions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm completely with you on the fact that you want to have competent people who understand what the issues are and able to empower to make things better themselves. I guess I'm looking for that. It's not always people that are the problem. That, you know, if as an organization you put the right systems in place, you have the right equipment, tools for the job, all this sort of thing. And sometimes organizations can jump to, oh, the fault was the person, whereas really they should be looking at the system and that.
Yeah, I've seen also organizations, I've worked in organizations where they believe, they jump directly to the person. And needless to mention some kind of stories about this, but yes, there are lots of organizations which have this kind of mindset. They jump to the person. This is the person who is responsible for it. Yeah, and just don't look or overlooking the fact that the systems need to be updated as well. So no, I also agree with you, Alison, in this point. Our systems which we use at the workplace are not something written on a stone. This should be changed periodically to make sure that it matches the actual culture of my company, of the organization where I work for, and not only this procedures and policies and so on, also the training and the kind of how I make the awareness, how I form the awareness of everyone in the organization, which is not only training, it's lead by example, it's pinpointing, it's many things together.
Yeah, I love your examples. You said this, you have one. Do you have an example?
About what, sorry?
Of when a person was blamed, but actually it was.
It's of course no names, but it's a shame. So we had a guy was crossing a production line, and he did something which is extremely stupid. All right, he decided to cross the production line in an area where he was working there and trying to fix some sensors. So the sensors are deactivated, and he know it because he's the one, right? He needed to do this to make this repair, and he decided to jump. I don't know what happens in his kind of thought. He thought that he's playing in the Olympics, maybe something like this, because he did something really very strange. And it ends up with a very dramatic accident. He stayed away from the work maybe for 2 months or something like that. And he got really injured. That's what happened with the person. He's mistaken. Yes, that's not questionable. But what really was more scary is that someone from this facility was responsible, okay, and he was responsible up to he was the plant manager. All right. His point about this accident, and the first thing he mentioned it when we were talking about, we need to check if the guy is pretending that he's injured or not. We need to check this kind of behavior that he's showing that he's severely injured. And so he's not showing, he's a guy in the hospital and there are doctors, okay, checked him and do this. So the management of the plant was just focusing how to give this guy a hard time because of what he's doing, because they wanted, as a result of the plant manager opinion, to also give him a disciplinary action. So I told him disciplinary action, okay. He got already a very hard consequences of this. And you want also to give him this disciplinary action because you believe that he pretending that he's severely injured. These kind of mentalities are really destroys everything we try to do in the terms of behavior and cultural.
Okay, so I have another example myself as well. One of my previous jobs, it's we had a lot of hazardous chemicals on site. Hazardous chemicals are often very good cleaning agents, not meant to be, but there you go. So we have a 45-gallon drum and someone cleaned a filter. They just dropped the filter into the really nasty chemical. Now, this guy has worked with this chemical for 20 years. Giving him more training, telling him it's a hazardous chemical is not going to make any difference because he knows that it's hazardous chemical. But he's done that. He's dropped the filter in. And not only that, he put his arm in. This is, like you say, it's crazy to believe. He put his arm in to the chemical and pulled out the filter. He had burns all the way up his arm. The cause of this accident is complacency. Well, he's just been in that situation for such a long time. It's complacency. And so that's the thing that we need to be addressing. If we observe people doing something like this, why are you dropping filters in for cleaning? then surely the root cause is there must be a better way of cleaning the filters, and B, really reinforcing and how you get that message across, but without the just the training and things, because he knows that fundamentally, he knows it, but it didn't stop him doing it. Yeah, so it's those kind of issues I find interesting.
I think also because also this is a very common problem or mindset or mood where people get to end at the workplace when they do something the same for a long time, so they have this kind of extra self-confidence, which might be a little bit a reason for an accident. So when we do cross walk downs in the workplace, and make the people who work in station A go for station B, not to work, just to observe and see different approach for things. That's usually also somehow helps to shake this situation of stability and confidence, which might lead someone to do something like the guy from the filter or the guy from the sensor. Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. Yes. Final question. So making observations, you're encouraging people to observe unsafe acts and safe conditions. We haven't actually talked about the positive side of things. I'll stick a question on the end for that later. So you're encouraging people, and lots of companies give targets of how many observations should be made. Do you have any thoughts on targets?
Well, I tried actually, I tried both ways. I tried to have a target, to set a target for every group of people. And I've tried also with other organizations just to leave it open. Whenever you like to make an observation, you're welcome. So, and here's the fact. In the beginning of this program, the first we introduced the program in one of my previous employment, you must have a target. All right. Otherwise, we need to, I don't want to say push, but I need to make it, oh yes, I need to make it a kind of need, a kind of, yes, I need to do this because there is a target. And then here's the antidote of having a target. So I say, yes, we should have a target, but let's make the target something very light. Per every employee once a week to make an observation. Okay, it's absolutely nothing. Once a week, making such an observation will not take 5 minutes. So later on, when the organization and the culture are a little bit started to move and started to get changed and start to be on the positive side of the curve, then I might think of removing this target and just make it, hey guys, you know what you need to do? You need to serve your colleagues. You need to, you know that you need to take a part, active part. So just move on and do it. But that requires a certain level of maturity when it comes to the safety culture.
Mm-hmm. How do you get quality over quantity?
Well, it's not a one-shot program. So we do the program, we start to see the observation, we start to see what's coming from this observation, and definitely we analyze these reports and observations which we receive. And when we feel that this it's not representing, it's not adding, it's not helpful, then we do again rounds and rounds of feedback, observation. This is mostly for those who work on the shop floor or in the construction side. We need to be very familiar with how to give a feedback, how to make an observation. It's not easy, and sometimes it might be easy for them to talk about it, but not easy to write it on a sheet of paper or something. Some of them sometimes need to make a small drawing there and the observation to show you what exactly was the thing, because some people really buy this thing by their all senses, and they really want to bring more observation, nothing for no reason, only just to be active part of the safety and try to improve the safety in the workplace. Not everyone are the one who are trying to make accidents, or the one trying to make shortcuts. No, there are also people who are keen on this, and those who are really bring the best reports by time. And to answer your question again, okay, we might need to do further rounds of showing people how to make good observation, how not to write their analysis and opinions, just to write facts on these sheets.
Okay. Have you ever used any sort of gamification where I don't know, there's a score and you get a star and a prize for having the best observation, or I don't know, the most
no, we sometimes, okay, we used to make some giveaways, okay, from the company, like caps and keychains and stuff like this, and we do it not really based on the number and the quality of the reports. We do it in general when people start to bring lots of these observations, without saying, yeah, that Mr. X or Mr. Y had 100 reports last month or something like that. No, we do it in a different. We do it randomly for those who deliver observations, just to keep them encouraged. And people at the workplace really like this kind of things. I personally like it, so it's helped.
Okay. If you're encouraging people to make observations now, some of them will be very relevant. Some of them will be, dare I say it, probably quite nasty. Some of them will be not significant. You know, I don't like the color of the carpet. We've run out of toilet roll in the toilets. So you now have a huge list of things to do. To have credibility for the system, these actions need to be completed in a reasonable timescale. So actually, you've just given yourself or someone else a huge amount more work that they didn't have before. And some of that will be useful work, but some of that will be less useful work. How do you stop this happening? How do you keep it prioritized?
I have a surprise. This will never stop. So people reporting ridiculous, unuseful stuff, this will continue. Because there will still people, they will still live among us and work with us in the workplace, and they are not convinced of anything which we discussed today, and they just come to the work because they need to come to the work, and they will keep reporting these things. So the good thing about this, that by time when everyone row in the same direction, everyone play the same tone, the overall environment around you is saying, be safe, be safe, be safe. At least we will have the number of those people coming down more and more. I have nothing specific about it, but of course it generates lots of work, and that was the complaint from those who are appointed to close the actions, that there are many things. But also one very useful thing about this, and that's something which is also tackled or managed by the software from Proactively, is to make these observations in groups. So they are not just on the thin air, okay, with everyone with his own perspective, with his own idea about things. No, the more we try to make it in a specific tracks, in a specific groups of relevancy to the safety situation, and we take it into tick boxes, it helps reducing the number of nonsense observations we receive. I might leave in the end of the day a free text field for someone to explain himself or to write something, but I'm more into making it more like ticking boxes, so I can categorize these observations and get the best out of it. Mm-hmm. And it's all, again, it's not black and white, but it's all, again, depending on the maturity of the organization.
Okay. I think one of the things that we try to encourage with Proactively as well is people not only to make observations, but if it's a hazard, that they can resolve it themselves where possible. So you can take a picture, this is before and this is after, and this is what I've done, and rewarding people for closing it out themselves, rather than just pushing it into the system and getting someone else to do it. So one Definitely. Of the things that we've looked at is, again, from thinking gamification, is having a sort of point system of, you get 3 points if you spot something and you solve it yourself. You get 2 points if you spot something and someone else fixes it, but it is closed out. and you get 1 point if you just spot something and it's just sitting there open in the system, which probably means that it's something that's less important. So it sort of gives a bit the ranking towards quality as well. So we've tried to encourage that sort of approach so that you don't end up with a huge list of open actions, which of course open actions removes the credibility from the system.
Definitely, gamification is very helpful. We all seen that during our career life, that it's really helped and produce a very positive impact on the safety situation and the safety performance. Well, I personally didn't try it for the behavior to reward those with the better reports, or to reward those who really tend to close the action themselves and go speak to the people. But I believe it will have a very great impact on the progress of this.
It's quite nice as well if you have an ISO system, because it's a measure of employee engagement, not just bringing up the issue, but actually being empowered to close it out themselves. So it can be quite a good thing. Yeah. Okay, last question. So we've talked a lot about spotting hazards, but I'd like to know your thoughts on using observations for measuring positive things and encouraging positive behaviors.
That's definitely it's an integral part of it. So you can't only point negative things, then the end of the day, the picture will be quite dark. But I mean, we use this in our day-to-day life. We use it with our kids. We use it with our friends. When someone do something good, you have to say it's good. Maybe he doesn't know, the person, that that he did something good, but when you say it, they understand it, and that's a kind of reinforcement for the good behavior. It's exactly the same importance as pointing an unsafe behavior or hazardous situation or condition. It's the same. And I remember the first time, okay, we had this program implemented. As I told you before, it was on paper, not by software. And we had 3 categories in the observation sheet: good behavior, unsafe situation, unsafe act. So it's 3 of them are at the same level of importance for our system, and we need to encourage the people as well during the conduction of this program to report and highlight the good behaviors as well. That's how we get good things running.
Yeah, and I love the idea that if you are using a mobile app, you can take photos, and those photos can go on a notice board of the positive things and
definitely
spread the message. Because I actually, you said that they were equal of importance. I think actually finding the positive ones and seeing that as a way that the company wants to progress is for me, that would be really important. Yeah.
Yeah, and now speaking, just lastly, Alison, the options and the possibilities which we have right now in our hands, because we're using a software, whether the software is from Proactivity or from the other providers, is a magic. I want you to imagine back then, all right, 10 years or 15 years ago, when first we start to implement this observation programs and behavior-based safety, and we need to fill lots of papers, and these papers go to someone else in the safety department. We need to go through it with the beautiful art of handwriting, and put them in Excel sheet and try to get some graphs from this. All this is away right now. You have it integrated within the system. The software makes all this for you. And mobile phones, smart mobile phones, that's something which we use every day. And spotting a hazard with it, just 5 minutes, then it's in the system, it's on air. So it goes to those who must take the action. It goes to the safety department to observe it. It gives you a statistical view on how much observations you had on the work at height, how much observation you had from people who are not wearing correctly their PPE, and. So the existence, or having the behavior-based safety smart in the smart version and using the software, this is something, okay, like this is a hell of support and hell easier, way easier than before.
Yeah, I love as well those examples that you give, they're leading indicators, which is how we're really going to improve in the future going forward, rather than the sort of the focus on lagging indicators like just access statistics.
Yeah.
This has already happened. As we all know, the fact that you haven't had an accident for a long time doesn't mean that you won't have one in the near future.
Of course.
So I think your observation system that you've described so well is a really great way of pushing our monitoring, measurement, leading indicators, indicators towards leading rather than lagging.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very, very much, Mohamed. It was lovely to talk to you. And I'm going to turn off the recording now.
Thank you, Alison. Thanks, everyone.